Hi, I'm Nina Bosky, and welcome to LifeBites, where each and every week we'll get you inspired in the areas of life, business, and media. We'll help you dare, dream, do, and be so you can get out of your head into your soul in order to tune in and take a bite. This week, we are getting you business inspired. Hi, everybody. Welcome to LifeBites Business Inspired. I'm Nina Bosky, and we have a special guest in with us today. He has a spark. Success Magazine says that he is one of the top 25 people that can help you reach your goals in business and life. And that list includes Oprah Winfrey, Brené Brown, and Tony Robbins. We are lucky to have him, and he's going to share some of his insights with us today in what it's like to be in business, specifically during this time and this era. So welcome to the show, Simon.
Thank you so much for having me. Good to be with you.
So Simon, you and I, know each other in terms of our group that we're together. And when I met you for the first time, your spark is there. You light up a room. So has it always been with you? Because you even wrote a book on spark, right? And so tell us a little bit about that and where that comes from, because that ignites a room, it ignites an audience, it ignites business leaders, I'm sure.
Well, I found out a long time ago, when you find your spark, you find your joy. When you find your joy, you find your voice. And when you find your voice, you find your freedom. Prior to me finding my freedom or my voice, I was at best an annoying echo instead of a person with an original voice. I was comparing myself with everyone else. And, when you compare yourself, you end up having the disease called comparison inferiority complex, right? So when I just stopped trying to be other people and said yes to myself, John Mason in the book An Enemy Called Average says most people are born originals, but they die copies. So
Ooh,
I
oh,
just,
wow. That is, can you say that one more time? Because I think people need to let that sink in.
most people are born originals, but they die copies. And when I read that quote from John Mason in his book An Enemy Called Average, I said, you know what? Average does not live here anymore. I'm done. And that's when I took off the layers and decided to just be my authentic self.
Wow. Now, let's back up the truck a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background, because you didn't just wake up and be on the top 25 list of success. Is it success.com or Success Magazine?
Yeah, Success Magazine, both
Success
one and the
Magazine.
same.
You're one
Mhm.
and the same. Okay. So I just want to make sure I got it right here. So let's back up the truck. How did you become you?
Oh my goodness. Grew up
I
in
know it's a
Buffalo.
big question.
No, it's all good. Grew up in Buffalo, New York. Mom and dad dropped me off at college at the end of my freshman year. They said, we don't have the money to send you back to school, nor do we have money to bring you back home to Buffalo, but we do love you. It took me about 10 years to finish my undergrad degree. Was living in a drug infested community, just probably the lowest part of my life. Ended up moving to Orlando, Florida. Eventually went to work for Disney. It took me about 2 years to get hired at Disney, 10 interviews, 10-page psychological analysis from the Gallup organization. And about 20 years ago, I was called by a journalist while working at Disney, and you never talk to the media unless authorized. And the journalist says, where do you see yourself 10 to 15 years from now? And I said, I see myself as the president and CEO of the Walt Disney World Resort and eventually the chairman and CEO of the Walt Disney Company. And he puts us in print. So the article comes out, page 12, Florida Business Trend magazine. And my boss calls me in the office. He's like, what were you thinking when you did this interview? And I said, I work at this company whose motto is, if your heart is in your dreams, no request is too extreme, for when you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Funny today, not funny then.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Oh my God. And also, I look at it and I go, oh my God, what a great, I'd love to have you on my team, because you are a visualizer. You're like envisioning what the Walt Disney, whole value system was about wishing upon a star and having your dreams come true, right?
Yes. So that was the beginning of the end of my career. So literally I left Disney 20 years ago, and since that time we've worked with about 2,300 organizations in 54 countries. And our goal is to really just help people understand how to lead the field, how to be the best that they can be wherever they are.
So when you left, obviously it wasn't a value connect in terms of this company. Did you go through a process of now what? I mean, or did you kind of go, okay, I'm going to reinvent myself right away? Because I think sometimes people, particularly right now, there's a lot of layoffs happening. There's a
Mhm.
lot of fear in the world. And so for people like yourself that can innovate, recreate, I think this is a really good lesson and value that they can get out of your journey too.
This is the greatest time in history to be in business, to start in business, to take your business to the next level. And I only say that because 20 years ago, when I left Disney, I put my resume out on the street. I got job offers and I turned them all down because I decided to bet on myself. Now, here's what was happening in 2003. The country was going to war with Iraq for the second time. Corporations were laying off by the hundreds of thousands, as you can imagine what's happening right now. And people are like, you're crazy. Hunker down, stay put. Don't bet on yourself. I said, the heck with it. I'm going for it. And what I realized, people who will thrive right now, they have a Vuja Day mindset. Deja vu has been there, done that. Vuja Day is going there, doing that. It's the
Ooh.
salmon that swims upstream that goes against the grain. So when everybody is zigging, you zag. This is the time to do it. You literally right now.
I love it. I love it. So, so you started working with these companies and you've written, I've got just, these are just a few of them, Ignite the Power of Women, which is your brand new book that's out there. Why
Yes.
write a book like this right now? What is it about women that you're like, this is something I really want to write a book about? It sounds like it's for men, but tell us a little more about that.
All the research says right now, this is the age of the woman, period.
Mhm.
And drop the mic. This is the age of the woman. Any business that's going to be worth its salt must have women leading or co leading the discussion. Why? Women have this ability to look at a problem with a 360-degree view, whereas sometimes men were very linear in our approach. That's number one. Number two, all the rage is AI, chat GPT. That's nice, but it will never replace WI, a woman's intelligence, because women just have this sixth sense of knowing about something that the data doesn't reveal. Number two. Number three, according to all the research, when women are leading or co-leading or at least involved in moving something forward, there's a positive net bottom line impact because women are going to make sure everybody benefits from the outcome of whatever's being done. So I'm not taking anything away from the men that are listening to us right now, but I wrote this book because what I realized is when we begin to collaborate together, we become better and learn from each other. So if we're going to move into the future, we need to unlock the creative spark that are in the women in our lives. And women have read the book and they've told me they've gotten more out of it than the men that have read the book.
Interesting. Well, I'm looking forward. I was like, wow, I can't wait to read this book. And the reason why I think it's really good as well to have it written by a man.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you why, is that sometimes if a female's writing something like this, it's like, oh, yeah, yeah, that nice little female over there that connects the dots. Yo, you're a people person. Let's say, for example, Nina. Yes, I am. And that's a gift, right? But here's the thing, the collaboration, because you have some females that can be very much, the take charge kind of linear focus. It doesn't, it can be masculine and feminine as well. But I
Mhm.
do think that learning from each other, particularly right now, there's such a huge challenge in the world with more,
Mhm.
more,
Mhm.
more.
Mhm.
And the beautiful thing about the masculine energy, the male energy, is it's about expansion. And let's singularly focus. If you want to go back to the caveman and just go, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to hunt today and I'm going to bring it home. And I bring home this one thing, right? And I could do really well at it. Whereas I find that the females will look at the holistic view, like you just
Yes.
said. And I think
Yes.
what a power I cannot wait to read this book. I'm excited to read this book from you because I was even saying to myself, a man needs to write this book as well to help everybody in the
Yes.
workplace.
Yes.
Not just, not just females, but males as well, because I think it really is, Simon, that, combination of the two that bring about this significant change that actually needs to happen in the workplace. What do you see some of the trends right now? I know you talked a little bit about AI, and I think that seems to be a very big, oh, AI is going to take over everything, right? What is your thoughts on that? Because that's a really interesting one as well.
AI is so wonderful. I've used Chat GPT. It's wonderful. And we are just at the very beginning. If we remember the internet when it first launched in the 90s, this is kind of like at the beginning of AI. It's only going to get better. But here's the thing, it also forces us as human beings to tap into creativity, because something that AI will never have is that spontaneity, that creative spark, that idea that only humans have the ability to bring to the earth. So, what I'm so excited about is there are 5 skills that LinkedIn, who has almost 900 million people on their platform, they've identified that's critically important. Creativity, number one, adaptability, number two, collaboration, number three, storytelling, number four, and emotional or social intelligence, number five. So, what's so exciting about this moment, if we were just to drop a pin in creativity, people are going to wake up and say, wait a minute, why are we doing business this way? Number one. Question number two, what can we do better? And it's in that what can we do better that forces the breakthrough.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so with you on this as well. And I think that, part of this time is we don't really have a roadmap because I think this is a time unlike ever before. People want to say, oh, it's like 2008. I actually don't think it's like 2008. I think we are
Mm,
not exactly sure where this is taking us based on even what you just said. We're at the beginning stages of a whole new kind of evolution
mm.
of doing business, doing life, etc. How do you feel about this statement that technology is taking over our humanity? What would you say to that?
It's absolutely not. It will take over humanity if humanity shuts off its mind and shuts down its thinking. Something that technology does not have, and even with AI, is this ability to think and to feel better about where you're going and to find hope and joy and inspiration. So, absolutely not. Technology is important, but it's not taking over me and you, because we have the ability to be our own algorithm. We have our own ability to code our way into the future with and decode anything that tries to slow down our human operating system. So if people always remember the power of the human operating system, you can always control alt delete your way into the future and say, I'm going to write a new software program, new coding to go where I've never gone before.
Well, and let me ask you something, because when you talk about spark, when you talk about, kind of coding yourself, going back to that quote about, we start as original and then we end up as copies, right? How does someone develop that in themselves to be able to say, I'm going for it. You know what? I have been at this job for 30 years and I am tired and I'm just being a copy or, an outdated version of myself. What would you say to that person who's thinking about taking that leap into the unknown?
Examine your portfolio of skills and strengths. What are your core skills that you have acquired over however many years you've been working? Number one. Number two, what are your strengths, your core competencies, things that you do better than anyone else that you have perhaps gone to school for or have just developed through the school of hard knocks? Okay. Once you examine your portfolio of skills and strengths, where can you now transfer those skills or strengths into an area that will drive value for you.
Mm.
And so whatever that looks like, is there a problem you can solve, a new team that you can join, perhaps a project that you can launch? There are so many options, but until you evaluate what you have, you'll always say, I think I can, maybe I can. But the moment you understand your value, what? You become unstoppable.
I love it. So can anybody develop spark? Because you inherently have it. When that smile comes across the screen, I just light up. I mean, that spark is there. How about somebody that goes, "Oh, I don't have his spark or I don't have her spark." What do you say to that?
So the first thing is start with what's right about you.
Hmm.
Take out a sheet of paper, set your timer to 30 seconds. And when I say go, write down everything that's right about you. At the end of the 30 seconds, look at what you've written. And you may say, Simon, I only wrote down one thing. Well, the whole exercise was about quality over quantity. So if there's one thing that's right about you, how do you start there and say, you know what? That's where my spark is. That one thing that brings me joy from the inside out. That's number one. Number two, you are who you are is bigger than what you do. So many times when people talk about spark, I got to find my spark. It's in the doing something.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what I'm saying in all of the research and something that I'll be teaching forever, it's about being. How do I be? Prefixes be. How do I tap into my beingness so that once I understand that I am being, thus I can become? So
Oh,
that's where your spark is. It's in the being and the becoming because you understand how to belong to yourself first. That's where the spark is being, belonging, becoming. That's what I've learned from Dr. Gene Watson, who taught me this in caring science. That absolutely
wow.
changed my life. That's where your spark is.
Yeah, it definitely has to be from the inside out, it really does, because if not, it's again a copy. I want to have that smile that Simon has. I'm going to smile all the time, and it's not organic, it's not truthful. And I think the more it was so interesting. I read this trend coming into 2023, with all the social media and the celebrity and everything else. It's the sense of we're getting more real. That's the trend this year, to be more real. And I'm thinking it should be a trend every year to be more
Absolutely.
real. I'm like, this is trendy to be real. Like the celebrity, look at my life, it's so perfect, isn't in this year. And I'm like, wow, well, maybe, but that authentic part, we are in an interesting time in the world. What would you say to leaders? Because I know that there are many leaders out there that are grappling with, oh man, I have to lead this ship and I'm not even sure how we're going to get there. What would you say to the leader of today? What do they need to understand about themselves and in general about the companies that they're leading going into this uncharted waters?
Your job is to invite people on a journey to discover the leader within themselves while they're following you. A leader, your job is not to give people a purpose for coming to work. Let that go. That is not your job. I want to come to work and find my purpose, and leaders are stressing themselves out. I got to make sure that in quiet quitting or quiet firing, people aren't like just checking out because it's not your job to help them find their purpose. The purpose of a leader is to invite people in an environment where they find their purpose and release their brilliance. And if they don't
Whoa.
find their purpose and release their brilliance, then you hired the wrong person. Because a person that's on a journey to find their leader within themselves has to go through the land of ambiguity, has to go through the land of uncertainty, has to go through the land of, we don't know how this is going to work out, but we're going to trust the process. And we're going to show up every single day and we're going to be honest about where we are. And we're going to make sure you understand where the money is going in the organization. And we're not going to hide, but we're going to build trust day by day, meeting by meeting, email by email. And you have to opt in every single day and say, do I still choose this organization? So, leaders, take a deep breath, relax, let it go.
Wow. So that's a really big one. I think because a lot of leaders, until they get what you just said, will try to carry people and the whole load of purpose, right? And so that's a big one, particularly if you have a leader that likes to control everything, and especially if they're feeling stressed and they're feeling a little freaked out about potentially layoffs or anything else, is to allow that space for somebody to find their brilliance. And you talk about brilliance a lot. So, what do
Mhm.
you mean by brilliance?
Brilliance is your insight, it's your potential, it's your genius, it's your it factor. When you find your brilliance, you find the thing that sparks you to live from the inside out. So, brilliance is finding that combination to the vault of you. And you open the vault from the inside out. And when you open it from the inside out, you wake up every single day to give joy, not to take, to ask, not to tell, to listen, not to hear, because you're in your brilliance. And here's the other thing I'll say about brilliance: you're not threatened by anyone else who might outshine you, because you
Mm.
are on your journey at the pace you're going, and you celebrate others. You never become jealous of where someone else is, because your brilliance shows up to say, I'm where I'm supposed to be, present to this moment, doing my best work. So just one more thing. When you're in your brilliance, you quit your job and you go to work, because a job stands for just overboard.
Oh my
See,
God, just overboard.
yeah, yeah. See, a job is employment, but brilliance is deployment. I deploy myself into what makes me come alive.
Wow. So we talked a little bit about the leader. Let's talk about the employee that, let's say, is going to go into work every day and may be feeling that fear factor, a little bit of the uncertainty, their own stress, etc. How do they tune into that brilliance themselves when they look at their job as a just overboard?
So I want every employee that's listening to us right now, go back to day one when you started in that place of business. How did you feel? What did you do? And there was something in you that said, I can do this. You got your sea legs under you. So go back to day one. Number two, look at what you do and say, wait a minute, they hired me to do a job, but how do I create plus plus XX? How do I take it to the next level without the tap on the shoulder asking for me to work harder and smarter? Number three, what do you want to be known for? How is your brand showing up in the business? Are you considered the go-to person? Are you the subject matter expert? So every employee now has to say, how do I advance the thinking in the organization, and go to my boss and say, what can I take off your plate that would make your job easier? Here's the last thing I'll say to employees: a paycheck is given to people who show up, but opportunities are given to individuals who think and work beyond what they're paid to do. This is what I've learned in 35 years of business. The individuals that get the promotion, they don't have all the fancy degrees. They have relationships and they know how to work the system. And if you have relationships and understand the system, doggone it, you are going to be all that in a bag of chips.
Oh, it's so true because, it's the research, and I know you know this as well, is the EQ skills are more important, even more than they were pre-pandemic, right?
Yes.
Is probably the number one skill set, particularly in the hybrid remote world.
Mhm.
And you think about this, you talk a lot about accountability,
Mm.
but I'd like you to touch on that, because I have to say that during this pandemic in business and some of the companies that I work with, that was probably one of the biggest challenges. It's communication and accountability. So what do you say to those two ingredients in this hybrid remote world, and how do we allow people to really tap into their own accountability? Because what you just said almost speaks to that a little bit.
So, when we talk about accountability, we have to just step back and let's look at what I would call how we act: ACT, action, character, and time. So the action that I'm taking, is it moving the business forward or backward? When I look at my character in the action, am I coming from a place of trust and a place that is advancing the cause of the business? And then when I look at time, am I constantly holding myself accountable to say, is this the highest and best use of my time? Okay. Now, when you step back and you zoom out, pun intended, when you look at your character, am I being busy or am I being effective? And if I'm being effective, I'm taking the right actions to maximize the time that I have been given to get something done. So, for example, if I am supposed to get a project done by Friday and it's Monday, the person that is accountable will have the project done by Wednesday because they have the right actions. They have the character, they have the time. One action might be, I don't have all the answers. Who do I need to reach out that can help me expedite this answer? Who else can I partner with? What if there's something I don't know? My character says, I go and say, I don't know what I don't know. It doesn't mean that I'm less than, it means that I'm more than because I ask for help. And when I look at time, because time is so precious, when we look at time, we say, highest and best use, most effective to get the greatest result.
Wow. That's really powerful for accountability because I think that's one that also speaks to that character in yourself because nobody's going to be able to really teach you that. That's something that has to really come from inside. I don't want to let my teammates down. I want to let my company down. I don't want to let myself down, right? And so
Yes.
many people kind of have that, especially if you're not in an office with all eyes on you and you're here, in front of your computer or in your office. What do you say about communication? Because I've said this a lot in this remote hybrid. When in doubt, over communicate. It's better to over communicate than under communicate. And so many people, if you were a bad communicator in the office, that's a really big challenge to get somebody to understand the importance, because I look at communication as the connecting of the dots. What do you say to a employee, a leader, a business, professional that is watching or listening to this right now? Because this is to me is one of the biggest attributes to a successful business.
Number one, when you show up on a Zoom meeting, show up 15 minutes early and start communicating and connecting. Communicating and connecting is the connective tissue of any culture in a business. So show up early. Number two, make sure you follow up with whatever was the deliverable. And even if it was something more personally related than business related, it's the personal that just builds that continuity that we're still in this together. Number three, do something off the grid. What do I mean? Yeah, we're virtual, but what if you went old school and say, let's pick up the phone and have an old school conversation or a handwritten note that's sent in the mail? Or if you're in the same location, can we meet for coffee? Be intentional about communicating value and worth and just doing that thing that people are not doing enough of. The other thing in communication is also think about your listening in communication to ensure that you really capture what was being said. Because right now, everybody needs psychological safety, and psychological safety
Mm,
is. According to Dr. Maria Music at the University of Michigan, is people need to be seen, valued, and understood. So, in my communication, do people feel seen? Do they feel valued? And are they understood? How so? It's because, hey, here's what I heard you say. Is this what you meant? So it's that clarifying in the communication that you really get what people are trying to convey.
wow. I really like what you just said because I think we have become in this fast-paced society. Yeah, 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 yeah. Looking at my cell phone and I'm, yeah, yeah, yeah. And we're not really paying attention and being present. And I think as leaders, as employees, as, having the respect to give somebody your attention when you said,
Yes.
time is so valuable. It really is. But that ability to clarify in that communication, it's not happening as much now, but in the midst of that pandemic, conflicts were happening left and right because people's stress level was just so high. I'm
Mhm.
sure it still is, but that reality of reacting to people instead of listening. Because if I'm reacting to what you said, because I have a trigger, then I am in relation to that reaction and I've stopped listening because now I think I know what you mean because I've assumed instead of clarified what you meant. And that's such one of the biggest things that I think we can all, listen and learn from. That is, I think that is one of the number one skill sets, particularly right now in life, not just in business, to our partners, to our children, to our families, to our friends, is to really give them that sense of presence. So, in talking to you, you have, I mean, man, I think about what a journey. You had the corporate life, and then you said, you know what, I am not going back to what I used to do. Wherever I'm going, I am leading the way and leading my own pathway. And here you are, 2,300, 2,500, companies later, coaching, writing books, etc. What's next for you?
So we're getting ready to launch something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's called Brilliant You: Mentoring to Lead. We're going to mentor this next generation of leaders that are up and coming in business to really think about being a whole person leader, not
Mm.
just the person. Years ago, bring us your head, but go check your heart at the door.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
this next generation of leaders has to understand we have to deal with the head, the heart, before we get the hands. And when we connect the head and the heart together, the feet will follow. So we're going to help mentor individuals to show up and lead the field in a fresh way.
I love that. You and I come from old school. I was in media as well, and Disney was one of my clients back in the day. So it used to be when I started in my coaching and business side as well, Simon, it was do as I say, not as I do, right? And when Silicon Valley and some of the culture and the different generations started to come into play, I think it's become more and more important. Now, what you're saying is to be really an effective leader, you can't have one or the other. You've got to have both. You've got to
Got
be
it.
integrated. And I think that is
Totally.
so powerful. And anything I can do to help that cause for you, I say to myself, yay. We need those leaders that really know how to lead in an innovative way and more connected way. Because a lot of times I'll see the ones that have a really strong work ethic and take charge and let's go, and they forget about the people side, the heart side. And then you've got
Yes.
people that are so heartfelt, but they need the structure and everything else and the drive and the vision to be able to get that forward. So I think that's really, and it can be integrated.
Yes.
You've done it, I've done it. There's many people that can do that. So I think that's fantastic. And where can they find you?
Certainly, ignitethepowerofwomen.com or certainly simontbailey.com.
And we'll put that up on the screen for you as well. My last question to you is, what inspires you?
Oh my goodness, what inspires me? What inspires me is to help the least, the last, and the often forgotten.
Mm.
When you help someone who can do nothing for you, research according to Emory University says the reward centers in our brain begin to light up almost as if we have been on the receiving end of the person we've just helped. And it's called the helper's high. That's
Woo!
what inspires me.
Hey, no wonder we connected so well because I love that about you. And I love the fact that you are such a giver and you have such a generosity of spirit. So I just want to say thank you for being on the show today and giving us some really good nuggets for the leader of tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Simon T. Bailey. You can check out his website here at simontbailey.com and ignite the power of women within.com as well. And that's his new book that's out. And believe me, I am so looking, I'm going to call you up or text you and say, hey, you know what? Here's some good nuggets. We might even have to have you back just on that book alone. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Nina Bosky for LifeBites Business Inspired. And remember to take a bite out of life before life takes a bite out of you.